There are many sanatoriums across America that are now abandoned and left to rot. Some of these places were used for holding those with mental illnesses, while others were used for containing people who had contracted some sort of highly contagious disease. And then there's Waverly Hills Sanatorium. In this video, we're gonna take a look at one of the most infamous abandoned sanatoriums in the United States. The place is apparently so haunted that paranormal investigators refuse to go there alone. Make sure to hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't already. Let's take a look at Waverly Hills Sanatorium. Waverly Hills Sanatorium was built in 1910 and was originally called the Louisville City and County Hospital. It was meant to serve as an overflow facility for the overcrowded city hospital in Louisville, Kentucky. But it didn't take long before the plans changed for the new building. See, by 1911, it became clear that there was a need for a dedicated tuberculosis hospital. So the director of the hospital suggested that they turn the newly constructed building into a sanatorium for those suffering from TB. His suggestion was accepted, and by December of that same year, the hospital had officially been converted to treat only those infected with tuberculosis. Throughout the years, the sanatorium would see several additions and renovations. In 1926, a three-story addition was made to the building. Then in 1946, another wing was added to the structure, bringing the total number of beds to 687. This was also around the time when the sanatorium was renamed Waverly Hills Tuberculosis Sanatorium. During the early 1950s, the need for sanatoriums started to decline. There were several reasons for this. One was that people were becoming more aware of how tuberculosis was transmitted and how to prevent its spread. Another reason was the introduction of streptomycin in the late 1940s. Streptomycin was the first antibiotic that could actually cure tuberculosis. With this new drug available, sanatoriums weren't quite as necessary as they once were. By 1961, the American Medical Association estimated that only about 30,000 people in the U.S. were still being treated for tuberculosis. In 1962, Waverly Hills closed down. The state of Kentucky cited that the cost of treating tuberculosis was just too high. They tried to get the federal government to help with the cost, but the request was denied. So in October of 1962, the doors of Waverly Hills Sanatorium closed forever. From the outside, Waverly Hills doesn't really look all that creepy. Sure, it looks like it has seen better days, and it is kind of unsettling to think about what went on inside these four walls. But from the street, it doesn't really look like much. It's just a large brick building with some sad-looking windows. If you didn't know what this place was used for or what type of history it has, you might not even think anything of it. But looks can be deceiving. What goes on inside this abandoned building is something else entirely. Since the 1960s, Waverly Hills has become known as one of the most haunted places in America. The question is, why is it so haunted? Well, let's take a closer look inside the building. We'll start off with what is known as the body pit. This is basically a tunnel that runs underneath the building. At one point, it connected the main building to an area where bodies were cremated. But the tunnel collapsed some time ago, and now it's just a dark, dank hole filled with the spirits of restless patients. Those who have explored the tunnel say that shadows seem to move oddly through the darkness. Also, cameras will sometimes pick up strange mists and fog. One investigator said that he heard screams echoing through the tunnels. Then suddenly the lights flickered on and he saw the shadow of what looked to be an old man carrying a bucket. He said it appeared to be looking for something. Then just as suddenly as it appeared, the shadow vanished. Some say the spirit of the old man is actually the ghost of the last person who died within the sanatorium walls. Another place that's heavily infested with spirits is the fourth floor of Waverly Hills. Like the rest of the building, the fourth floor is completely abandoned. The rooms are dirty and filled with trash. The mattresses are torn and there are bloodstains covering the floors. The fourth floor is probably the worst part of the entire building. This is because back in the day, this is where they kept the worst cases of tuberculosis. Those who stayed on the 4th floor rarely survived. Today, the spirits of these former patients roam the halls. People have reported seeing shadowy figures standing at the end of the hallway. And when they turn their head, the figures vanish. There's also a spirit that makes regular appearances in the rooms on the 4th floor. Many refer to her as the Lady in Blue. She's said to be the ghost of a nurse who worked here during the 1950s. It's said that she was so dedicated to her job that she hardly ever took any breaks. She would work day after day until she eventually contracted tuberculosis and died. Now her ghost walks the halls, trying to find her lost patients. But perhaps the creepiest place in Waverly Hills is the operating room. This room alone is enough to send chills down your spine. The operating table is still there, covered in what seems to be dried blood. The walls are covered in graffiti and there are various medical instruments laying around. Some of these instruments haven't been used since the 1950s. You can imagine the types of things that might have happened in this very room. Patients screaming as they undergo surgery. The smell of antiseptic and blood filling the air. Doctors and nurses rushing around trying to save lives. It was probably a very busy operating room back in the day, but today, it's eerily silent. That is, of course, unless you count all the ghosts that are said to roam this room. To this day, paranormal investigators won't enter the operating room alone. There have been reports of equipment being moved and even touched by unseen hands. In fact, when a local TV station did a segment on Waverly Hills, their entire crew witnessed a door opening on its own. They were filming on the 2nd floor, and the door to the operating room opened by itself. Nobody was near the door and nobody entered the room. It just slowly began to open. Not only are there ghosts roaming around Waverly Hills, but there are also evil spirits that lie dormant within the walls. This evil entity is what makes Waverly Hills one of the most haunted places in America. Paranormal investigators claim that this place has a very negative energy. Even the bravest investigators refuse to spend the night here. And those who have spent the night have had some very disturbing experiences. Things like shaking beds, whispering voices, and sudden temperature changes are common occurrences in Waverly Hills. These paranormal investigators don't want to spend the night here because they fear that whatever entity lies within the walls may try to possess them. Whatever this thing is, it has been here for decades. It knows these halls like the back of its hand, and it does everything it can to prevent anyone from leaving. Now, as far as we know, no one has ever been possessed by this entity. But there is one story that I couldn't leave out. Back in 1994, 2 teenage boys decided to trespass onto the property. These boys were known for playing pranks on people. So when one of the boys claimed that he was going to spend the night in Waverly Hills, nobody really believed him. But he insisted that he was going to do it, and that's exactly what he did. He spent the night alone in this abandoned building. The next morning, he told everyone that he wasn't alone. Apparently, he heard footsteps behind him, but when he turned around, there was no one there. He also said that he felt a presence in the room with him, like someone was sitting on the bed watching him. Terrified, he ran out of the building and never went back. Years later, he admitted that the whole story was just a prank. But this begs the question, why would he lie? If he truly wasn't alone the entire night, why would he make up such a story? It's obvious that whatever is in Waverly Hills needs to be feared. It's unlike anything you've ever seen before. Waverly Hills isn't your typical abandoned building. It's filled with creepy hallways, secret tunnels, and ghosts everywhere. It is said that this place is so haunted that even the ghosts are afraid to go there alone. Thank you guys for watching. Do you believe that ghosts are real? Let me know in the comments below. And before you go, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe.